Good evening. Now I want you to imagine for me. You just moved into your new house, your new neighborhood. You go off to work. You leave your wife and your child at home for him to get ready for school and for her to get ready at work. You can't stay there to protect them. You think they're safe. Someone breaks into the house while your child's sitting down at the table having his breakfast. He's eating his cereal. He screams. His mother runs down the steps. Now in this situation, where are you? Are you left defenseless? Can you protect your home? Can you protect your children? Can you save both of your lives? Or are you standing there defenseless and armless? This situation happened to me. When I was 8 years old, my house was broken into. I screamed. My mother runs down the steps with the gun that my father taught her how to shoot, how to operate, and she didn't have to kill the robber or anything. She just defended our home with it. And thanks to that, nothing bad happened to her, nothing bad happened to me, no possessions were stolen or anything like that. Now, I'm here to tell you why we need a more a well-trained populace in America about weapons, about weapon education, about how taking weapons from law-abiding citizens isn't helping, about how it's going to take citizens from being a hard target, which is something that's not easily overtaken. Something like a bunker is a hard target. You want to be a hard target. You don't want to easily be taken advantage of or stolen from or killed or murdered. And it would turn them into soft targets, defenseless soft targets, such as things with what happened in school shootings and things like that. I'm going to give you a few instances where the situation may have possibly been prevented due to someone being a hard target and having a weapon and being trained how to use it. And I'll give you a couple situations to where a person being a hard target and actually having the weapon and using it saved lives. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with Columbine. It was tragic. There was two students who went into their school and they opened fire on a bunch of innocent, unarmed children, actually students that were their fellow classmates, excuse me. Um, One big thing that stuck out to me was the fact that all schools are a gun-free zone. They're a gun-free zone. They're not allowed on the premises. But nowadays, you'll sometimes see schools with police officers that walk around and they're armed to protect the children. I think that's a great idea. But in this case here, there was no such thing. So these two walk into the school. They open fire. They killed 13 people in this school. According to CNN.com, 13 people were killed. Now, there was no one in the school armed. There was no one to defend them. It was just a person with a body against a weapon. And a lot of people lost their lives that day because of it, because they had no way to protect themselves. I'm not saying that you should arm students. That's not what I'm saying. But I believe that in schools where the education should start. If you can teach a child in high school how to drive a car, you can teach them weapon education. You can teach them how to use it. You can teach them to protect themselves. And for the second example I'll give you, it comes from Wikipedia.com with Sandy Hook, which was an even bigger tragedy. One gunman goes into the school and he kills 26 people. It's not like he killed adults, which is tragic nonetheless. He killed, most of his victims were 6 and 7 years old. There were a couple teachers that were killed, and there were 2 or 3 that were also wounded. And that's according to Wikipedia.com. Now, these schools were what I called a soft target. They were vulnerable. As a criminal, you're not going to pick the place where you think everyone will be armed and they'll be able to defend themselves. You want to take advantage of them. You want to be able to outpower them, to manipulate them, to have control over them. So you come in, you use more force than they can respond with. You have a weapon, they have no weapon, so you can accomplish your task. Now here are some examples of some schools where they also had similar situations, but they were stopped by people who had weapons, who were trained how to use them. Pearl High School, you've probably never heard of it because it wasn't a massacre. Although one student did kill 2 students, it wasn't as big as Columbine because it was stopped. But you don't hear about that on the news because it's not this giant tragedy where so many people lost their lives and no one was able to defend themselves. What happened was the one student walked into the school, he opened fire, he killed 2 other students. The principal saw what was happening, he ran to his car, got his weapon, and he held the weapon, and he pointed his weapon at the student and was able to get the student to surrender. And he saved a lot of lives that day. He could have potentially saved, countless lives. There's no way to tell how many people that student could have killed if that principal wouldn't have gone to his vehicle to get his weapon. to protect his school. The second I want to tell you about is Parker Middle School. It also was a school that was under attack by by a student. Actually, it was a dance. Excuse me. It was a dance that they were having. It was a sort of a prom. He killed one and wounded three. The owner of the dance hall ran to his vehicle and he got his weapon. He was able to disarm, or excuse me, he was able to get the student to put his weapon down, and the cops apprehended him and they got out of there, and he killed one person and wounded three, but he probably saved a lot more lives. That was a small area with a lot of people in it. He could have opened fire and taken a lot more lives. Dianne Feinstein, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, believes that when a gunman realizes that no one else is armed, he will put down his weapon. Now, situations such as Columbine and Sandy Hook prove that to be false. And according to controversialtimes.com, the main reason that it stopped is because the student was met with force. So with people like that who are trying to ban guns and who want to completely remove them from the country, they're overlooking the fact that you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your family. You have to be able to maintain this sense of security. And having a weapon and being trained to use it is one way to do such a thing. I believe that, I stated earlier, that we could teach it in school. I believe just like we teach children how to drive, we teach them to respect the road, we teach them to use turn signals, we teach them all of this stuff. We can teach them how to use a weapon, we can teach them the power it has, we can teach them the good it can do, we can teach them discipline. It's part of it. I've learned a lot of discipline from being in the military and actually having to use weapons, and I grew up with it, but I also learned a lot more once I got here and I began to understand what a weapon really could do. And throughout my whole life, since that situation in my life, I've always wanted to be a hard target. This concept has stuck with me for a lot of years, and I always want to be able to protect myself. I want to be able to help people around me. And with this new attack on guns that's happening in America, it seems to overlook the fact that criminals by definition don't obey the law. So if you want to ban guns from America, you're overlooking the fact that you're just taking the guns out of the hands of the law-abiding citizen, and you're giving the criminals power over these people who are just trying to live their lives and do the right thing. If you don't believe me, check the war on drugs. The war on drugs, it's a losing battle. There's plenty of drugs out there. There's cocaine, crack, heroin, all these things. They're all illegal, but people still seem to get their hands on them. The same thing would happen with guns, but in this case, it's not something that they're going to kill themselves with. It's something that they're going to protect themselves with to make themselves better and to be able to thrive and to feel safe in their own communities. Well, thank you. My name is Alex Suttles, and I hope that you would consider educating yourself about weapons and how to use them and their power, and use that before the offices to vote for these people who want to ban guns or who want to take them out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. Thank you.